Hey everyone, today I want to show you how I optimize the amount of re-renders that the Talum React app components do within our Talum website. So if I go and head on over to our production level version of Talum, right, and then my developer optimized version, I'll go ahead and explain my thought process and the overall high level understanding. So to start off, first thing what you want to do is you want to have React DevTools installed. All right, you can just simply search up React DevTools. Right, I have Firefox, so I just switched to Firefox. I got it. Right, if you're using Chrome, just do that, and it's available on both browsers, so it should be completely fine. Now, once you have this, all right, you'll get these options. So just go ahead and click on any of them. It doesn't matter, right? So you can click on Profiler or Components. I clicked on Profile, so I'll just use that. And in any one of those, you'll find this setting over here, like the setting icon. Click on that and make sure you have this option ticked. Highlight updates when components render. Essentially, what that means is that whenever a component renders again, right, or loads again, there will be a little highlighter along it, which will signify to us, the developers, that this component has re-rendered. All right. So in order for this setting to work, you just need to keep the DevTools open. So I'm just going to go ahead and minimize it so we get the most amount of workable screen. And now you will see that you just saw a lot of highlights. So I'll go ahead and explain what's happening. So this is the unoptimized version, and if I actually try to search for something now, right? Let's say I want to do model United Nations. All right, so I'm going to search up MUN. Okay, and when I searched that up, you saw that the highlights happened everywhere, right? I'll do it again. You can see that the highlights are happening to the whole component. And this is a very, very bad practice, because what this is signifying is that every component within this page just reloaded. When in reality, all we really need to reload is this section over here, right? And this one, obviously, because we are using the state, and the state is going to change. But only really we need this and this to reload. Everything else does not need to be reload, right? But what's happening currently is everything is being reloaded, which is going to cause performance issues. All right, and we can see that over here too. When I click on this, you'll see that it's reloading the whole component, right? And that's very, very bad because of the fact that we only really need this section to reload. All right, or in this case, we only need specifically this section over here to reload. We don't need anything else to reload. Anything else that reloads is just garbage, right? Because it's not doing anything extra. It's not doing anything. It's not doing something new. Okay. So first things first, how can we solve this? Well, to start off, you want to make sure that all of your code is modularized, meaning that they're in different components, are in different files. Because the thing about React is that you can have code in different files, and then you can call on these files in a parent component by a simple JSX tag, right? And if you notice in this case, right, you'll see that this section and this section are in the same component. They're not in two separate components, which is causing, when React compiles this, it recognizes this whole interface as one component, when in reality they're serving very different purposes, right? This one is being used for filtering, and this one's being used to show the extracurriculars and for searching, right? So first things first, we want to separate this into its own component and this into its own component. That way they're being re-rendered at different times, right, for different things. Okay, but it's not that easy, right? That would usually work just by separating your code into different components, so that it only really re-renders when that component needs re-rendering, right? Because it's its own separate component, rather than being its like a own parent component, right? Like all of the code is within one component, right? And that would work, right? That would work, and I'll show you that. I'll show you here, right? This is my code over here that I fixed, kind of, and you'll see that when I click this, you'll notice that there's a very big difference from here. You can see when I click this over here, that all the whole page is being rendered because we see highlights everywhere in the whole page, right? But if you see over here, the highlight only happens to this specific component, right? Which is what we want, because this is the component that's only being changed, right? So that just shows you the power of just separating your components into different files, right? Because that's what I did here. This is its own file, and then this is its own file, right? And then they're all within obviously a parent component, right? But essentially that just shows you the power of, by simply just putting them in different files, you're gonna avoid unnecessary re-renders, which will cause performance degradation. But now there's another issue that arises. So everything works perfectly here, right? You can see that it only re-renders the component that needs the re-rendering, right? There's no unnecessary re-renders, unlike the current version. But now the issue is that if I go back here and I try searching for something, let's say I search up for the 4-H club, you'll notice that there's still the same issue of the whole component being re-rendered. Alright? You can see that it's the same thing, right? In this case, you can see that this whole component is being re-rendered. The header component is not being re-rendered because it's, it's separate component, but this is being re-rendered, which is very, very bad, because this doesn't need any re-rendering. This little component doesn't need any re-rendering. So we're causing a lot of unnecessary renders. Now, why is that the case? I literally just talked about one of the main solutions, which is just separating your components into different files and then calling them as JSX tags, right? All of that works really, really well, right? But the issue now is that we're actually passing a state value as a prop to this child component. So in this child component, there's actually a prop to, to the search terms, all right? And this prop is being put into the parent component. Sorry, this state is in the parent component, all right? So the state is in the parent component and is being passed as a prop to the children components. Also, very important thing to note is that this is a separate component and then this is a separate component. All right. Now, the issue that arises with this solution, where you have a centralized state within your parent component, and then you're passing it as props in your children component that need them, is that you're gonna cause unnecessary re-renders on the parent component, which presumably will have other children component. What this means is that instead of only this section being re-rendered, you're going to cause this section to be re-rendered as well, because this section is also in the parent component in which the search state is holding the value from. All right. So essentially, what's happening is that when I'm adding, this text, the state value for that is correlating to this search bar, right? It is changing, right? That's what we want it to do. But it's changing in the parent component because that's where we put the state. Meaning that every time we run this, it's re-rendering the whole component because the state is within the parent component. Meaning that the state is changing, which is in the parent component. That means that the whole component is being re-rendered because the state is in the parent component. All right. So how can we fix this? Well, you can simply use a state management system like zustand. All right. I'm going to put npm here so we can see the package. Right. This is the best way to get started. Right. It's very fast. It's very simple to get started. Library. I wouldn't really recommend Redux unless you have very complex systems and very complex states, like a lot of it, right, then use it. But if you have just simple states, just use this because it's very easy to get started, right? And essentially what this library will do is it will create a global state, right? And with this global state, we can actually go ahead and call the states that we need within the child component, all right? And then what this does is that since they're in the child component, right, whenever you make a change, it will only make a change to the components that are subscribed to that child component, right? So if you have, let's say, this is a separate component, and this is also a separate component, right? So let's say you make a change over here, this component will re-render and this component will re-render, because only these two components are referencing that state of a search, right? So this won't re-render and this won't re-render either, right? And that's the perfect behavior, because we only expect these two to change, right? Because those two are being affected by that state, right? So that's essentially the whole problem that zustand is trying to solve, all right? And it does that through the create a store, which will essentially allow you to hold specific properties, and these properties are your states, right? So in here I would have like a search, and then I would have like an action, right, where I can go ahead and set that search to a specific value, okay? So that way we're able to minimize the unnecessary re-renders that we're getting currently over here and here, and so that we only get it in this component and in this component, okay? So you first start off essentially, right, this is a little bit of a wrap up, you start off by modularizing your component so that your parent component has multiple children components, all right? This way you're able to separate them into different components, so that when you have to re-render a feature, it's going to re-render only that section of the code, because React recognizes it as its own component, rather than what we have here, where this code and this code are in the same component, meaning that React doesn't recognize this as a separate component and this as a separate component. So this code will be re-rendered whenever we make changes over here. That's the first thing. But the second thing is, what if you have states? And what if these states are actually shared states between different components, like I have here, right, with the props? Well, then you can use a state management system like zustand or React context for more complex use cases. And essentially, with that, you will be able to subscribe to a specific state, within a component. So then this component will be subscribed to the search state, and this component will be subscribed to the search state. All right, so only this component and this component will be re-rendered, rather than having the whole parent component re-render by having a global use state hook in your parent component, right? So that is the way I was able to optimize Talon. So I actually haven't implemented zustand yet, but that's the whole theoretical way I'm thinking of doing it, by just having this and this subscribed to the search variable or state, I should say, so that this and this are the only ones that are re-rendered when I go ahead and press search. So then when you see the highlighting, right, it will only highlight this and this, all right, rather than highlighting the whole component, which is happening because, again, the use state is being updated, and that use state is in the parent component of all of these children components. All right, so this is a little bit more advanced React, but I hope this kind of helped you, maybe for your use cases. And definitely check out the React Dev Tool, so you can also see if your components are re-rendering efficiently, right? Because this is performance. All right, so take care and see you guys next time.